The transport shuttle dropped us on the landing pad at 600 hours local time. I remember the sound of it most of all. That deep, bone-rattling hum that vibrated through the floor and up into my teeth. The landing struts groaned against the metal platform, and for a moment I thought we might tip over. But then the engines cut out, and everything went silent. Not truly silent, though. Outpost 7 was never silent. I stepped off the ramp and into the kind of cold that makes your lungs ache. Kepler 186f is what the brochures call a temperate world, but whoever wrote that had never spent a winter in Chicago. The air was thin and sharp, carrying the faint metallic tang of the atmospheric processors that kept us alive. Above me, the sky was a bruised purple color, streaked with clouds that moved too fast, like they were running from something. The outpost spread out before me like a scar on the landscape. Gray prefab buildings connected by pressurized tubes, antenna arrays pointing toward the sky. And in the distance, the perimeter wall, 20 meters of reinforced durasteel topped with motion sensors and automated turrets. I'd read the reports before coming. Everyone had. But reading about something and seeing it with your own eyes are two very different things. Dr. Vasquez. I turned to find a woman in a standard-issue UEF uniform approaching. She was tall, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of weathered face that told me she'd been on this rock for too long. "Commander Reyes," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome to Outpost 7. I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, her skin calloused. "Thank you, Commander. I appreciate you allowing me to observe." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Observe? Dr. Vasquez, you're the first xenobiologist we've had in 3 years. The first scientist, period, who actually wants to be here. Most people are trying to leave." "I'm aware of the reputation." "Are you?" She gestured for me to follow, and we walked toward the main airlock. "Do you know how many researchers we've had come through here in the last decade? 13. Do you know how many stayed longer than 6 months?" I shook my head. "None. The longest was Dr. Chen. He made it 4 months before he requested a transfer to Luna Station. Said the quiet was driving him crazy." "Quiet?" Ray stopped at the airlock door and turned to face me. Her expression was unreadable. "That's the thing about Outpost 7, Doctor. It's never really quiet. You'll hear things out here, at night mostly, sounds that don't make sense, voices that aren't there. And sometimes—" She paused, and for just a fraction of a second I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear. "Sometimes you'll see things." "Commander, I've spent the last 6 years studying xenobiology. I've been to 11 different star systems. I've seen creatures that would make your nightmares look tame." "I'm sure you have." She opened the airlock door and stepped inside. "But the things out here aren't creatures, Doctor. They're something else entirely." The interior of Outpost 7 was exactly what I expected. Gray corridors lined with pipes and cables. Fluorescent lights that buzzed constantly. The faint smell of recycled air and industrial cleaner. Everything about it screamed military installation, which is exactly what it was. Reyes walked me through the main hub, pointing out the various sections. Living quarters, mess hall, command center, research wing. The research wing was where I'd be working, and I was eager to see it. "So what exactly do you know about the situation here?" Reyes asked as we walked. "I've read all the official reports," I said. "The Draveth appeared approximately 8 years ago. First contact was peaceful. They seemed curious about us, and we were curious about them. They're a non-humanoid species classed as— well, the official classification is Class 5 anomalous entity. That's the polite term for monster. Commander, I've spent years studying species that humans would consider monstrous. The Draveth are just another." "They're not just another anything, Doctor." Reyes stopped walking and faced me. "I need you to understand this before we go any further. The Draveth are not animals. They're not primitive life forms waiting to be studied. They are intelligent, they are terrifying, and they are watching us." "Watching us?" Always, every moment. They know exactly what we're doing and they're waiting for us to make a mistake. I wanted to argue, to point out that this was exactly the kind of fear-based thinking that had led to the xenophobic policies of the last century. But something in Ray's eyes made me pause. She wasn't being paranoid. She was being honest. "I understand," I said, "and I'll be careful." "I'm not asking you to be careful, doctor. I'm asking you to be smart. These things have been studying us for 8 years. They know our weaknesses, they know our fears, and they're patient. They can afford to wait." "Wait for what?" Ray's turned and continued walking. "I don't know, and that's what scares me." The research wing was smaller than I'd expected. A single room with 3 workstations, a holographic display table, and a wall covered in monitors showing live feeds from the perimeter cameras. "So this is it," I said, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "Budget cuts," Ray said with a shrug. "Most of our funding goes toward defense. The research budget is, well, non-existent." "Pretty much, but we do have access to all the data collected over the last 8 years. Every encounter, every sighting, every communication attempt. It's all in there." She pointed to the holographic display table. "You should be able to pull up whatever you need." I walked over to the table and placed my hand on its surface. The display flickered to life, showing a menu of file categories. "How many encounters have there been?" "Official encounters, 147. Unofficial ones." Ray's paused. "Hundreds, thousands. People see them all the time, but they don't always report it." "See them where?" "Everywhere, out in the wasteland, at the perimeter wall, sometimes right here in the outpost." My head snapped up. "Here, inside the facility." Ray's nodded. "We think they can phase through solid matter, or maybe they're just really good at hiding. We've never actually caught one inside, but people have seen them. Shadows in the corridors, faces in the windows, that sort of thing." "That sounds more like paranoia than actual sightings." "Maybe, but when you've been here long enough, you start to notice patterns. The Draveth only appear when there's something worth watching. Major decisions, important meetings, the arrival of new personnel." She looked at me meaningfully. "Like today." I felt a chill run down my spine. "You think they're watching me?" "I know they're watching you, Doctor. They're watching all of us, always." The first night at Outpost 7 was the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep. The bunk in my quarters was comfortable enough and the room was quiet, but that was the problem. The quiet was oppressive, suffocating. I was used to the background hum of city life, the constant buzz of activity that came with living on Earth. Here, there was nothing but silence and the occasional creak of the prefab walls settling. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to make sense of everything Ray's had told me. The Dravath were a mystery. They had appeared without warning 8 years ago, emerging from the depths of space in a fleet of ships that looked like they had been grown rather than built. First contact had been tentative. The Dravath were cautious, observing from a distance, learning our language, our customs, our weaknesses. And then they had started communicating. The official records were vague about what exactly had been said. All I knew was that the Dravath had proposed something, a mutual understanding, the diplomats called it, and the UEF had accepted. The Dravath had withdrawn to a single continent on the planet's surface, and humans had built Outpost 7 to maintain contact. But that was 8 years ago, and since then nothing. No further communication, no explanation, just the constant, unsettling presence of the Dravath, watching from the shadows, waiting for something. I must have drifted off at some point, because I woke suddenly to a sound that didn't belong. Scratching. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the control panel by the door. Everything was still. Scratch. There it was again, coming from the wall. I held my breath and listened. The sound was faint, almost imperceptible, like claws dragging across metal. It moved slowly, deliberately, from one side of the wall to the other. For a long moment, I didn't move. Every instinct told me to stay still, to make myself invisible. But then I remembered what Reyes had said about the Dravath watching, waiting, and I felt a surge of anger that pushed past my fear. I swung my legs out of bed and walked toward the wall. The scratching continued, steady and rhythmic. "Hello," I said. My voice sounded small and weak in the darkness. The scratching stopped. I pressed my ear against the wall. Nothing, just the silence, heavy and thick. "Who's there?" I asked again. A sound came from the other side of the wall, not scratching this time, something else, a whisper so faint I almost missed it. "We see you." I jerked back like I'd been burned. My heart was hammering in my chest, my breath coming in short gasps. For a moment I couldn't think, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at the wall. "We have been watching." The voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was something about it that made my skin crawl. It was too smooth, too controlled. Like the speaker had studied human speech carefully and was mimicking it without truly understanding it. "What do you want?" I managed to say. "We are fascinated, your species, your wars, your art, your cities of steel and glass." "I don't understand. What do you want from us?" The wall seemed to shimmer, and for just a fraction of a second I saw something through it. A shape, dark and indistinct, moving just beyond the surface. It had no clear form, no arms or legs or head, just a shifting mass of shadow that seemed to absorb light. Then it was gone, and the wall was just a wall again. "We have much to learn," the voice said, fading into nothing, "and much to teach." I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the wall, trying to process what I had just experienced. When I finally turned away, I realized I was shaking. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Personal log supplement. Dr. Elena Vasquez. Date 2/18/70413. I experienced my first encounter with the Dravath last night, or at least I think I did. It could have been a stress-induced hallucination. I've heard that prolonged exposure to the planet's atmosphere can cause psychological effects, but it felt real, too real. The thing communicated with me. It spoke in English, perfectly pronounced, with no accent whatsoever. It said it has been watching us, learning about us. It said it has much to teach. I don't know what to make of this. The official records mention nothing about the Dravath communicating directly with individuals. Everything I've read suggests that they only interact with us through official channels, through the diplomats and researchers we've sent to meet with them. Is it possible that they've been communicating with people all along, and no one has told me? Or maybe I'm just going crazy. Either way, I need to learn more. There's something happening here, something that the official reports aren't telling me, and I'm going to find out what it is. Document end. Part 2. The Whisper Network. Document start. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez, Senior Xenobiologist, United Earth Federation. Date 2/18/70415. Location: Outpost 7, Kepler 186F. 3 days into my stay at Outpost 7, I started asking questions. Not the official kind. I'd already dug through every file the research database had to offer, and none of it told me anything I didn't already know. I needed to talk to the people who had been here for years, the ones who had seen things they weren't supposed to see. The mess hall was the best place to find them. Every evening, the outpost's personnel gathered there for the evening meal, and I made a point of sitting at different tables each night, striking up conversations with whoever was around. The first night I sat with a group of engineers. They were friendly enough, but when I mentioned the Dravath, their faces went blank. "We don't really talk about that," one of them said. "It's not a good idea." "Why not?" "Because they're always listening." He glanced around the room nervously. "That's not a metaphor, Doctor. They really are always listening." The second night, I sat with a group of technicians. They were more open than the engineers, but they still seemed reluctant to discuss the Draveth in detail. One of them, a young woman named Private Chen, told me about a night she had spent on perimeter duty, watching the sensors. It was about 2 in the morning, she said, keeping her voice low. Everything was quiet, too quiet, like the whole world was holding its breath. I know the feeling, I said. So I'm sitting there, watching the monitors, when I see something moving on the thermal imaging. It's outside the perimeter, about 100 meters out, just packing back and forth. Did you report it? I was about to, but then it stopped moving and it turned toward the camera, and I swear, doctor, it looked right at me, not at the camera, at me. How could you tell? I just could, she shook her head. I know that sounds crazy, but there was this feeling like I was being studied, like something was looking through my eyes and seeing everything I had ever done, everything I had ever thought. What happened then? Nothing. I sat there for the rest of my shift, not moving a muscle. When the sun came up, the thing was gone, but I knew it was still out there, watching. The third night, I finally found what I was looking for. There was an older woman sitting alone in the corner of the mess hall. She had gray hair and tired eyes, and she wore the insignia of a civilian contractor. I'd seen her around the outpost, always keeping to herself, never talking to anyone. Mind if I join you? I asked. She looked up at me, and for a moment I thought she was going to say no. But then she shrugged and gestured to the seat across from her. Dr. Vasquez, she said, the new xenobiologist. That's right, and you are? Dr. Margaret Okonkwo. I'm a linguist, or I was before I got assigned to this rock. A linguist? What do you study? She smiled bitterly. The Draveth language, what little of it we've been able to understand anyway. I felt a surge of excitement. You've been studying their language. That's exactly what I need to know about. The official reports barely mention. The official reports are garbage, she cut me off. They're censored and sanitized for public consumption. If you want to know what's really going on here, you have to look at the unofficial records. Unofficial records? She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. The Whisper Network, that's what we call it. A collection of personal logs, journals, and observations that the higher-ups don't want anyone to see. I've been compiling it for the last 6 years. I stared at the chip. Why would you do that? Because someone has to tell the truth. These things aren't just aliens, Dr. Vasquez. They're something more, something we don't understand. I took the chip and turned it over in my hand. What do you mean by something more? Dr. Okonkwo leaned in close, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Have you ever wondered why the Draveth are still here? Why they haven't left or attacked or done anything in 8 years? I assumed they were studying us. They're not studying us, doctor. They're afraid of us. The words hit me like a physical blow. Afraid of us. All of the evidence points to it. The way they watch us, the way they keep their distance, the way they communicate only in whispers. They're terrified, doctor, and I don't think it's of our weapons or our technology. I think they're afraid of something else. What? She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I think they're afraid of what we are, our potential, our capacity for both good and evil. They look at us and see something they can't understand, something that doesn't fit into their view of the universe, and it scares them. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what she had told me. The idea was absurd. Humans were primitive compared to the Draveth. We hadn't even mastered interstellar travel when they appeared in our system. How could we possibly be a threat to them? But the way Dr. Okonkwo said it, with such certainty, made me wonder. Can I see the chip? I asked. Take it, copy the files, share them with anyone you trust. But be careful, Dr. Vasquez. The people who run this outpost don't want this information getting out. If they find out you have it. I understand. She nodded and stood up. Good luck, doctor, you're going to need it. That night, I went back to my quarters and plugged the data chip into my terminal. The contents were staggering. Hundreds of personal logs, written by outpost personnel over the last 8 years, dozens of video recordings captured by security cameras, and an extensive collection of observations made by researchers who had tried to study the Draveth up close. I started with the earliest entries. From the first year of contact. They seem curious, one log read. The way they watch us from a distance, never approaching, never making a sound. It's like they're trying to understand us. Another log from a security officer. I saw one today. Actually saw it with my own eyes, not through a camera. It was standing at the edge of the wasteland just watching. When I looked at it, it didn't move. It just watched me back. And I felt this cold dread wash over me, like I was looking at something that shouldn't exist. I scrolled through dozens of entries, each one more unsettling than the last. They communicate with us sometimes, not through words but through images. When you look at them, you see things, memories, visions, images of places you've never been. It's like they're trying to show us something. Last night I dreamed about them. I was standing on a field of glass and they were all around me, silent and still. They didn't move, didn't speak, just watched me. And when I woke up, I felt like I had lost something, a piece of myself. I think they're reading our minds. Not in the way you'd expect. They can't see our thoughts, but they can see our emotions, our fears, our hopes, our dreams. They understand us better than we understand ourselves. I reached the end of the first batch of logs and paused. My hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding in my chest. What I was reading was impossible, but it had all been recorded by reliable witnesses, people who had no reason to lie. I took a deep breath and kept reading. Personal log of Dr. Margaret Okonkwo. Date 2/18/309/22. Today I had my first direct encounter with the Draveth. I was in the research wing, reviewing some old data, when I felt a presence in the room with me. I looked up, and there it was, standing in the corner just watching. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. Instead, I felt a strange calm washing over me, like the thing was somehow soothing my fear. "I don't understand you," I said. "I don't understand what you want." It didn't respond in words. Instead, it showed me an image, a memory, a vision of something I'd never seen before. I was standing on a world that wasn't Earth. The sky was a deep crimson color and the ground was made of something that looked like glass. In the distance, I could see a city, towering spires of crystal that reached toward the sky. And everywhere there were people. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, all of them looking at something in the distance. I couldn't see what they were looking at, but I knew somehow that it was important, the most important thing in the universe. Then the vision ended, and I was back in the research wing. The Draveth was gone, and I was left alone with a single word echoing in my mind. Remember. I read the entry 3 times, trying to make sense of it. The Draveth had shown Dr. Okonkwo a memory, a vision of a world that wasn't hers. But why? What did they want her to remember? I scrolled down to the next entry. I've been having the same vision every night. A world of glass and crystal, a city reaching toward the sky. I see people, not humans, but something else, something I don't recognize, and they're all watching the same thing, the same distant point in the sky. I don't know what it means, but I know it's important. The Draveth are trying to tell me something. They're trying to warn me. I just don't know what about. I closed the file and sat back in my chair. My mind was racing with questions. What were the Draveth trying to tell us? Why had they been watching us for 8 years without making direct contact? And what did they have to be afraid of? The answer, I suspected, was lying somewhere in the data chip. I just had to find it. The next morning, I found Dr. Okonkwo in the research wing. She was sitting at one of the workstations, staring at a holographic display that showed a complex pattern of symbols. Dr. Okonkwo, I said, I read your files. She looked up at me, her eyes tired, and I have questions, many questions. I thought you might. She gestured to the chair beside her. Sit down, doctor, we have a lot to discuss. I sat down and leaned forward. First question, what exactly do you think the Draveth are afraid of? She paused, considering the question. I've been thinking about that for 6 years, and the only conclusion I can reach is that they're afraid of what we represent. Which is chaos, unpredictability, the human capacity for both creation and destruction. She turned to face me fully. The Draveth are an old species, very old. Their civilization has existed for millions of years. They've seen empires rise and fall, seen species evolve and go extinct. They've learned to predict the behavior of other sentient beings with near-perfect accuracy. But they can't predict us. Exactly, we're a wild card. No matter how much they study us, no matter how many visions they send, they can't figure out what we're going to do next, and that terrifies them. I thought about this for a moment, but why would they be terrified of unpredictability? If they're so advanced, can't they just adapt? Theoretically, yes, but I think there's something more going on. She reached for the holographic display and brought up an image. It showed a series of symbols arranged in a pattern I didn't recognize. I've been trying to decode their language for 6 years. I've made some progress, but there are parts of it that I still don't understand. What does it say? She smiled grimly. This symbol here represents fear, and this one represents future. But when they're combined like this, the meaning changes. It becomes something more like anxiety or dread. Dread of what? That's the part I can't figure out. She pointed to another symbol. This one is a verb which suggests action, and this one is a noun which suggests a specific thing. Together, they translate roughly as to undo or to unmake. Undo what? I don't know, but I have a theory. She looked at me meaningfully. I think the Draveth are trying to warn us about something, something that's going to happen in the future, something that could destroy everything. The weight of her words settled on me like a physical burden. You think they're trying to help us? I think they're trying to save themselves. And if they're that afraid of what's coming, maybe we should be afraid too. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything Dr. Okonkwo had told me. The Draveth were afraid, not of us directly, but of something we could become, something we might do, something that could unravel the fabric of reality itself. It sounded like science fiction, but then again, so did everything else about this situation. I reached for the data chip and plugged it into my terminal, scrolling through the logs until I found one that caught my attention. It was from a private who had been stationed at the outpost 4 years ago. I saw something today that I can't explain. I was on perimeter duty watching the wasteland when I saw a Draveth approaching. Not walking, floating like it was gliding across the ground. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. I felt calm. And then it did something I didn't expect. It spoke to me, not in words but in images. I saw a flash of something, a city on fire, people screaming, chaos everywhere. And then I saw the Draveth floating above the chaos, trying to stop it, trying to help. But they couldn't. Whatever was causing the chaos was too powerful for them to stop. And then I saw myself, me, standing in the middle of it all, not afraid, not confused, just angry, so angry. That's when I woke up, and I realized that the Draveth weren't the monsters. We always have been. Document end. Part 3. The fear in their eyes. Document start. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez, Senior Xenobiologist, United Earth Federation. Date 2/18/70420. Location, Outpost 7, Kepler 186F. The Whisper Network consumed me. For the next 5 days, I barely slept. I spent every waking hour reading through the logs, analyzing the data, trying to piece together the puzzle that was the Draveth. And the more I learned, the more convinced I became that Dr. Okonkwo was right. The Draveth were afraid, not just wary or cautious, truly, deeply afraid, and their fear was directed at us. But why? What could we possibly do that would terrify a species that had existed for millions of years? The answer came on my 9th night at Outpost 7. I was in the research wing, alone, reviewing a series of security footage recordings from the last 8 years. Most of them were mundane, patrol routes, maintenance checks, standard outpost operations. But a few of them showed something else. In one recording from 3 years ago, a Draveth had appeared on the perimeter wall. It stood there for hours, watching the outpost, never moving. When the sun came up, it was gone. But the security officer who reviewed the footage described feeling a strange sense of dread while watching it, like the thing was waiting for something. In another recording from a year later, a Draveth had appeared in the main hub. It had materialized out of thin air, right in the middle of the room. The personnel who saw it fled in terror, but the Draveth didn't move. It just stood there, watching until it faded away. I was studying the footage when I noticed something strange. In every recording, the Draveth had the same posture, a slight tilt of the head as if it was observing something closely. And its eyes, if you could call them eyes, were always fixed on a single point, not on the people or the buildings or the machinery. On the sky. I rewound the footage and watched it again, and again. Each time, the Draveth's gaze was directed upward toward the stars. I felt a chill run down my spine. "What are you looking at?" I whispered. "What's out there?" The room seemed to grow colder. I looked up from the display and saw something that made my heart stop. A Draveth was standing in the corner of the room. It was the first time I had seen one directly, not through a camera or a monitor, but with my own eyes. And it was beautiful in a way that was deeply unsettling. Its form seemed to shift and flow like smoke caught in a breeze. Its surface was dark, nearly black, but there were flickers of light within it, like distant stars. And its eyes, those terrible, knowing eyes, were fixed on me. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. My throat felt tight, my chest constricted. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The Draveth tilted its head, just like in the recordings. "You see us now," it said, its voice soft and resonant. "Truly see us." I managed to force the words out. "Why are you afraid of us?" The Draveth was silent for a long moment, then it spoke again. "You do not understand what you are, what you can become." "Then explain it to me." "You are the future, and the future is terrible." "What does that mean?" "We have seen it, the chaos that follows you, the destruction you bring. Everywhere you go, you leave a trail of broken worlds and shattered lives. It is not malice. It is simply what you are." "We're not like that," I said, shaking my head. "We're not monsters." "You are not monsters. You are something worse. You are potential made manifest, the ability to create and destroy without limit. We fear you not for what you have done, but for what you could do, what you will do." The Draveth moved closer, its form flowing like liquid shadow. I could feel its presence, cold and ancient, pressing against my mind. "We have tried to understand you, to communicate with you, to warn you, but you do not listen, you will not listen, and so we wait." "Wait for what?" "For the end." I felt a wave of despair wash over me. The weight of everything the Draveth had told me pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to argue, to deny what it was saying, but I couldn't. Deep down, I knew it was true. We were the monsters, not because we were evil, but because we were unpredictable, because we had the capacity for both good and evil, and we never knew which one would win. "What can we do?" I asked. "How can we stop this?" The Draveth's form flickered, and for just a moment I saw something else within it, something ancient and terrible. "We cannot tell you," it said. "It is not our place, you must find your own path." And then it was gone. I didn't move for a long time after the Draveth had vanished. I just sat there, staring at the empty corner, trying to process what had just happened. The Draveth had spoken to me, really spoken to me, and what it had said had shaken me to my core. We were the future, and the future was terrible. I thought about the chaos we had caused throughout our history, the wars, the genocides, the destruction of our own environment. All of it had been driven by our capacity for both creation and destruction, our inability to choose one over the other. And now, with the technology to travel between the stars, we were taking that capacity to the rest of the universe. What would we do when we encountered other species? Would we help them or would we destroy them? Would we learn from them or would we exploit them? The Draveth seemed to think we would do the latter. And maybe they were right. I forced myself to stand up and walk back to the display table. The security footage was still playing, showing the Draveth's image frozen on the screen. I studied it closely, looking for any sign of what the creature had been trying to tell me. And then I saw it. In the background of the footage, barely visible against the night sky, there was a star. It was small and faint, but it was there, and it was getting brighter. I rewound the footage again and watched it frame by frame. The star appeared in the first frame, barely visible, but by the 10th frame it was significantly larger, and by the 20th it was bright enough to be seen with the naked eye. The Draveth's gaze was fixed on that star. I looked at the date on the footage. It was from 3 months ago. The star had been getting brighter for 3 months, and no one had noticed. My heart raced as I pulled up the astronomical database and searched for any celestial bodies that matched the star's location and movement patterns. The results came back almost immediately. No known astronomical bodies detected at this location and movement pattern. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. The star wasn't a star at all. It was something else, something that was getting closer. And the Draveth had been watching it for years. I found Dr. Okonkwo in her quarters the next morning. She was sitting on her bunk, surrounded by papers and data chips, her face pale. "You've seen it too," she said before I could speak. "The star." "Yes, what is it?" "I don't know," she shook her head. "I've been trying to figure it out for years, but whatever it is, the Draveth are terrified of it." "Could it be a natural phenomenon?" "No, natural phenomena don't behave like this. The star's movement pattern is too irregular. It's accelerating, changing direction, as if it's actively navigating toward us." "Toward us?" "As in toward Kepler 186f. Toward humanity, I think. The Draveth have been warning us about it for 8 years. The visions, the whispers, the way they always look at the sky, they've been trying to prepare us for something." "Prepare us for what?" Dr. Okonkwo looked at me and I saw the fear in her eyes. "I think they're trying to help us survive an invasion from somewhere out there." She pointed upward. "Something that even the Draveth are afraid of." Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Date 2/1870/421. I've been trying to make sense of everything I've learned. The Draveth are afraid of us, but they're even more afraid of something else. Something that's coming toward us from deep space. The star is getting brighter. At first I thought it might be a ship or a fleet of ships, but it's too big for that. Whatever is out there, it's planet-sized, maybe larger. The Draveth have been trying to warn us, but we never understood. We thought they were the enemy, but they were actually trying to protect us. They were trying to prepare us for what's coming. But what is coming, and how do we stop it? Document end. Part 4. The Gathering Storm. Document start. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Senior Xenobiologist, United Earth Federation. Date 2/1870/425. Location, Outpost 7, Kepler 186f. The star grew brighter every night. I started spending my evenings on the observation deck, watching it through the telescopic lenses. It was impossible to miss now. A faint, reddish glow in the darkness of space, like a warning beacon sent from across the void. The personnel at Outpost 7 had started to notice. Conversations in the mess hall were hushed and anxious. People glanced at the sky more often. The usual military stoicism was cracking, replaced by something that looked a lot like fear. Commander Reyes called a meeting on April 24th. Everyone who could be spared attended, cramming into the command center to hear what she had to say. "By now you've all seen it," Reyes said, gesturing to the holographic display showing the approaching object. "The astronomical community has been tracking this thing for 3 months. It's huge, larger than anything we've ever encountered, and it's heading straight for us." "Aliens?" someone asked. "Possibly, or something else. The Draveth have been monitoring it for years, and they've been trying to tell us something about it, something important." "What are they trying to tell us?" I asked. Reyes turned to me. "That's what we're trying to find out, Doctor Vasquez. You've had more contact with them than anyone else on this base. What have you learned?" I hesitated. The truth was that I didn't fully understand what the Draveth had been trying to tell me, but I had a theory, a terrifying one. "I think the Draveth are running from something," I said. "They're not watching us because they want to study us. They're watching us because they want to know what we're going to do when the thing out there arrives." "Arrives?" Reyes looked alarmed. "You're talking about a planet-sized object." "I know, and I think the Draveth know what it is, but they're too afraid to tell us." The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for me to continue. I took a deep breath and went on. "Dr. Okonkwo and I have been studying the Draveth's language. We've found patterns in their communication that suggest they're trying to warn us, not about themselves, but about something else. Something that's coming." "What kind of something?" "I don't know, but I know that whatever it is, the Draveth are terrified of it. They're more afraid of it than they are of us, and that should tell you everything you need to know." After the meeting, Commander Reyes called me into her office. "Dr. Vasquez," she said, closing the door behind us, "I need you to be honest with me. What do you really think is going on?" I sat down across from her desk. "I think we've been getting it wrong from the beginning. The Draveth didn't come here to study us or observe us. They came here to hide." "Hide from what?" "From that," I pointed upward. "Whatever is in the sky, it's chasing them, and now it's chasing us too." Reyes stared at me for a long moment. Then she reached into her desk and pulled out a data chip. "I've been keeping this for a long time," she said. "It's a message from the Draveth. Our linguists have been trying to decipher it for years, but they've never been able to fully understand it." She slid the chip across the desk to me. "Maybe you can." I took the chip and plugged it into my terminal. A message appeared on the screen, written in a language I didn't recognize. But as I looked at it, the symbols began to shift and change, rearranging themselves into words I could understand. "We are the Draveth. We are a species born from chaos, and we have spent eternity trying to understand it. But we have failed. You are the answer. You are the hope. We beg you to listen." I read the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it. "What does this mean?" I asked. Reyes shook her head. "I don't know, but I think it's connected to what's coming." The object in the sky got closer. By April 26th, it was visible with the naked eye, a faint, red-orange glow that looked like a second sun. The outpost sensors had identified it as a massive, planet-sized entity, but they couldn't determine its composition or purpose. I stood on the observation deck, staring up at the glowing object, and felt a familiar chill run down my spine. The Draveth were out there, watching, waiting for us to understand. They wanted to help, but they were too afraid of what was coming to act. I felt a presence beside me and turned to see Dr. Okonkwo. She was carrying a data pad, her face pale. "Dr. Vasquez," she said, "I've finished translating the rest of the Draveth's message." "What does it say?" She handed me the data pad. The symbols on the screen were clear now, fully translated. We are the Dravath. We are a species born from chaos. We have spent eternity trying to understand it, but we have failed. You are the answer. You are the hope. We beg you to listen. The chaos is coming. It will consume everything. You are the ones who can stop it, the ones who can choose order over entropy. We fear you because you hold the power of the future in your hands. We fear you because you are the ultimate symbol of hope and destruction. We need you, please help us, help yourselves, the chaos is coming. I looked up from the data pad, my hands trembling. The chaos, I said, that's what they're afraid of. What is the chaos? Dr. Okonkwo asked. I think it's the thing in the sky. I think it's what they've been running from for millions of years, and now it's found us. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Date 2/18/70427. The object in the sky is getting closer. We've estimated that it will arrive within the next month. The Dravath have sent us one final message, and it's clear what they want from us. They want us to save them. But I don't know if we can. We're not ready. We're not prepared. We're still fighting among ourselves, still divided by our fears and prejudices. How can we possibly face something like this? Maybe the Dravath were right to be afraid of us. Maybe we are a danger, but maybe we can also be a hope. I choose to believe that we can. Document end. Part 5. The choice. Document start. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Senior Xenobiologist, United Earth Federation. Date 2/18/70502. Location, Outpost 7, Kepler 186F. The chaos arrived on May 2nd. I was in the research wing when the alarms went off, a loud, piercing wail that echoed through the corridors, making my ears ring. I ran to the command center, my heart pounding. What's happening? I asked. Commander Reyes turned to me, her face pale. The object is entering the planet's atmosphere. It's going to land. How is that possible? It's planet-sized. I don't know, but it's happening. We all turned to the main display screen. The object filled the screen, a massive, swirling mass of red and orange, like a giant storm. It was descending toward the planet's surface, trailing wisps of glowing energy. The Dravath appeared around the outpost, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, materializing out of thin air. They stood in silent formation, watching the sky. What are they doing? I asked. I think they're waiting, Reyes said, for us. I stepped forward, moving toward the observation window. The Dravath didn't move, didn't speak. They just watched, their ancient eyes fixed on me. You need to tell us what to do, I said. You've been trying to warn us for 8 years. Now's your chance. Tell us what to do. The Dravath didn't respond. Instead, they turned as one, their gazes shifting to the sky. And that's when I saw it. The chaos wasn't a thing. It was a reflection, a mirror image of everything we had ever done, everything we had ever been. It was our own faces, twisted into a nightmare, staring back at us from the sky. Are you seeing this? I asked. Reyes nodded. It's a vision. The chaos is showing us what we could become. The Dravath said we were the hope, that we were the ones who could stop this. How? I thought back to all the logs, all the visions, all the whispers. The Dravath had been trying to teach us something, something important. The chaos is the reflection of our fears, I said. Our hatred, our anger, our need for control, it's feeding on us, on our worst impulses. So what do? We have to let go. We have to choose something else. I stepped out of the command center, walking onto the observation deck where the Dravath were standing. They turned to look at me, their eyes full of ancient wisdom and desperate hope. Please, I said, help me, tell me what to do. One of them stepped forward, its form shifting and flowing. You are the ones who must choose, it said. The chaos cannot be defeated by force. It must be overcome with understanding, with compassion, with the choice to be better. I don't know if we can do that. You can, you are the hope, you have always been the hope. I turned back to the sky. The chaos was descending, covering everything. It was a night of endings, a night of terror, but it was also a night of beginnings. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Humanity, I said aloud, the chaos is coming. It's a reflection of our fears, our hatred, our anger, but we can overcome it. We can choose something else. The chaos roared in response, louder than ever, but I didn't back down. This is our moment, I said. We can fight each other or we can fight the chaos. We can destroy ourselves or we can save ourselves. It's our choice. As I spoke, I felt a change in the air. It was like a weight had been lifted, like I had done something important. The chaos began to retreat. The swirling mass of red and orange started to recede, folding back into the void from which it came. What happened? Reyes asked. Something clicked, I said. Something changed. The chaos feeds on fear, but we showed it something else. What did we show it? I looked out at the Draveth, still standing silently by the window. Hope, I said. In the aftermath, the Draveth came to us, not as observers but as partners. They shared their knowledge, their history, their fears, and they explained what had happened. The chaos is a test, they said. It's a reflection of the fears of any sentient species. It feeds on fear and hatred, but it fades in the face of hope. I asked them why they had waited so long to tell us this. We didn't know, they said. We were afraid that you would fail, that you would destroy yourselves and us with you. But we didn't. You didn't. I thought about all the months of fear, all the years of uncertainty, and I realized that the Draveth had been right to be afraid of us. We had the potential for destruction, but we also had the potential for something else. We had the potential to be the hope the galaxy needed. Document End. Part 6. The New Dawn. Document Start. Personal Log of Dr. Elena Vasquez, Senior Xenobiologist, United Earth Federation. Date 2/18/70515. Location: Outpost 7, Kepler 186F. The chaos is gone. The object in the sky is nothing more than a memory. But the lessons we learned will never be forgotten. The Draveth have become our partners, our teachers, our friends. We have learned from them and they have learned from us. I stand on the observation deck, watching the sun rise over Kepler 186F. The sky is clear, the clouds gone. In the distance I can see the Draveth, still watching, still waiting. But their fear is gone. They are no longer afraid of the chaos, and they are no longer afraid of us. I realize now that we were never the monsters. We were just humans, flawed, imperfect, but capable of incredible things. And that is what makes us truly special. I think back to the first night I heard the scratching on the wall, the whisper that told me they were watching. I was afraid then. I was terrified, uncertain. But now I know the truth. I know that the monsters were never the Draveth. The monsters were the fears, the hatred, the chaos we had created for ourselves. And we beat them all. I think about the future a lot these days. What it will bring, what we will become. The Draveth have told us about other species, other worlds, other mysteries waiting to be explored. They have taught us that the universe is full of wonders and terrors, and that we have a role to play in it. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if we will always make the right choices, always be the hope the galaxy needs, but I know that we have the potential to be great, to be kind, to be better. And maybe in the end, that's enough. I walk into the command center, where Commander Reyes and Dr. Okonkwo are waiting for me. The Draveth are there too, their forms flickering gently in the morning light. We need to make a decision, I say, about what happens next. Reyes nods. We've been discussing it. The Draveth have offered to help us build a new alliance, A partnership that could change everything. It could be dangerous, Dr. Okonkwo says. The chaos might return if we fail. Yes, I say, it might, but we can't let fear control us. We can't let it stop us from being the hope we were always meant to be. The Draveth step forward, their eyes glowing with ancient wisdom and newfound hope. We have spent eternity trying to understand the chaos, they say. But now we understand. You are the answer. You are the hope. We will stand with you for as long as you need us. I smile, feeling a warmth in my chest that I haven't felt in months. Then let's get to work, I say. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Date 2/18/70515. Today was the first day of the rest of our lives. We stood together, human and Draveth, and we chose hope over fear. We chose understanding over hatred. We chose to be better. The chaos is gone, but its shadow will always remain. We will always have the potential to fall, to become the monsters we fear. But we also have the potential to rise, to be the hope we need. I look at the Draveth, standing beside us, and I see the future. A future of partnership, of collaboration, of understanding. A future where we face the unknown together without fear. I wasn't afraid of the monsters until I saw them fear humans, but now I see that their fear was never about us. It was about the chaos, the darkness that exists within all of us. We beat the chaos, but we must never forget how close we came to losing. We must never forget what we are capable of, both the good and the bad, both the light and the darkness. And we must always, always choose hope. Document end. End of log. Epilogue. Document start. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez, Senior Xenobiologist, United Earth Federation. Date 2/18/70601. Location, Outpost 7, Kepler 186F. It's been a month since the chaos disappeared. A month since we stood together, human and Draveth, and chose hope over fear. The outpost is different now. The corridors are brighter. The people are happier. There's a sense of purpose that wasn't there before. The Draveth have become our partners, our teachers, our friends. They've shared their knowledge with us, taught us about the universe and its wonders. And we've shared our knowledge with them, taught them about our culture, our art, our music. We've learned so much from each other, and we still have so much more to learn. I think about the first night I saw a Draveth, the way it whispered to me, the way it made me feel. I thought then that I was afraid, but now I realize that I was just uncertain, unprepared. The Draveth have taught me that fear is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be acknowledged, to be understood. It's a part of who we are. But it doesn't have to define us. I stand on the observation deck, watching the sun set over Kepler 186F. In the distance, I can see the Draveth, still standing, still watching, but their gaze is no longer fixed on the sky. It's fixed on us. And for the first time in my life, I feel like everything is going to be okay. We have a long road ahead of us, a journey that will take us to the farthest reaches of the universe, to places we never imagined existed. There will be challenges, obstacles, and dangers we cannot even imagine. But we won't face them alone. We will face them together, as partners, as friends, as a new alliance. I think about the chaos, the fear that consumed us, and I realize that we beat it not with force but with understanding, with compassion, with the choice to be better. That is what it means to be human. That is what it means to be hope. I walk into the command center, where the Draveth are waiting for me. Dr. Vasquez, they say, we are ready. I nod, so am I, let's begin. Personal log of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Date 2/18/70601. Today marks the beginning of a new era. An era of partnership, collaboration, and understanding. An era where the universe is no longer a place of fear, but a place of hope. The chaos is gone, the fear is gone, and in its place there is only hope. I look at the Dravath, standing beside us, and I see the future. A future where we stand together as one, facing whatever comes our way. I wasn't afraid of the monsters until I saw them fear humans, but now I see the truth. The monsters were never the Dravath. They were the chaos, the fear, the hatred. And we beat them all. Thank you for listening. Document end. End of all logs. Final thoughts. The story of Outpost 7 is a story of fear and hope, of chaos and understanding. It's a reminder that we are capable of both great destruction and incredible compassion. And it's a call to action, to choose hope over fear, to choose understanding over hatred. The Dravath saw what we could become. They saw the chaos, the darkness, the potential for destruction, but they also saw the hope. They saw us. And now together we face the future, not as enemies but as partners, not as monsters but as friends. I was afraid when I first arrived at Outpost 7, afraid of the unknown, afraid of what I might find. But I found something I never expected. I found hope.